I am in love with Mina the Hollower. I'm also in love with the video game itself. Something about 16-bit games with their reduced palettes, chirpy, crunchy sound fonts, and simple controls tickle a part of my brain in just the right way. Though there are plenty of indie titles that borrow inspiration from this era of games, Mina the Hollower is the true love letter to them, especially when it comes to music. Composer Jake Kaufman restricted himself to only sounds available on the Game Boy sound chip with the Konami sound cartridge expansion. Despite this limitation, he crafted an enormous and memorable score of over 4 hours that is frankly full of bangers. In this video, I'll be using some music theory and a bit of music history to dig into this amazing score and find out what makes it tick. Let's start with a familiar piece, the Outskirts, specifically the Embarked East version. In the first few bars, we get a feel for Kaufman's style. The music is dense with instruments and voices. Chiptune snares for percussion, a sweet melodic line, and upbeat synths for accompaniment. There are very few pieces in this soundtrack that aren't densely packed like this. For simplicity, I'll represent the instrumentation with 3 voices: the bass line, the melody, and general accompaniment. After these introductory bars, we arrive at the first real section of the piece. This has a really distinct sound to it. Our key here is A minor, as indicated by the chord outlined in the first bar, but the second measure is a jump to a C minor chord, an interval of a minor third away, which is an unusual chord change for sure. Minor chords separated by a major third are often used to evoke a spooky or haunted kind of sound. This is because of the tritone created by the root of the first chord and the third of the second. Also standard in the arsenal of dramatic spooky music is the harmonic minor, which is used extensively throughout the soundtrack. This little raised seventh does so much work with creating tension and leading to dramatic resolutions. These 2 chords repeat across several measures, which really cements this harmonic pattern. This progression of alternating chords, separated by a minor third or sometimes by a tritone, is present throughout the game. Now take a listen to some examples. This repeated harmonic structure becomes a recognizable feature that defines Mina the Hollower's musical style, as seeing patterns like this begins to connect different pieces of the soundtrack together, though Kaufman employs a variety of chord types and keys so that these sections never sound too similar. Uniformity in structure in music is essential, especially when dealing with a large body of work such as this. Keep that idea in mind as we dive deeper into the score. The second section of Outskirts is notably different from the first. The chords here don't stay close to our key of A minor, instead tracing an interesting progression. This sequence of descending diminished chords especially adds a ton of color to the harmony. Diminished chords are another trademark of Halloweenish music because, as before, they bring out that tritone. Let's take a break from harmonic analysis and get a closer look at the melody in this section. It consists mainly of variations on this initial pattern adapted to different harmonies. This technique goes all the way back to classical composers like Mozart and is a fantastic way to build out musical ideas. Take a deeper listen to other parts of the soundtrack and you'll hear a ton of theme and variation. For example, in the first area of the game, no, I'm not talking about September. No, not the swamp. What kind of masochists are you? In Mourner's Mile, we hear this theme established in the first few notes. which is further elaborated on in the next measures, including this nice little inversion. This actually isn't the first time we hear this theme. The title screen music introduces it in one of the early bars. But here is the first instance where it's used heavily in the score, so I'll keep calling it the Mourner's Mile theme. Since we already brought up Mozart, I wouldn't be surprised if Kaufman was inspired by Alla Turca from Piano Sonata No. 11 for this one. Jumping to the next area, the Old Graveyard, we get a more upbeat and slightly modified version of the Mourner's Mile theme. And finally, in Queensberry Crypt, the theme is modified even further, so that only a sliver of its original form is preserved. Another motif you hear throughout the soundtrack is these notes from the Ossex theme. Then there's also Thorn's theme, the main title screen, Radiant Manor. Oh my god, there are so many motifs in this game, and it's so fun picking apart each piece to discover them. Like with the harmonic patterns we saw earlier, sprinkling these melodic ideas throughout the soundtrack makes the whole thing feel cohesive and part of a larger work. Another choice I like in the game design is the partitioning of the areas into multiple subsections and the unique tracks accompanying each one. In the first area, we have the slower theme of Mourner's Mile, which establishes the motif we'll hear in later subsections. And then Graveyard kicks things up a notch, with faster, more complex arrangements, and the Crypt slows things back down, changes the key, and introduces some new musical ideas, while still drawing on the old ones. Most of the areas follow this pattern: a slower, more methodical track to start, followed by a more upbeat one, often in the same key, and ending with something quite different, if not entirely unique. Some of the area bosses borrow musical ideas from the sections too, like the Bone Beach boss, whose track is just a corruption of a few notes from the Sickly Shore theme. There are similarities between the subsection themes which tie them together, but also enough contrast to make them stand on their own. In a way, they play the role of movements in a classical sonata, perhaps even a sonata by Mozart. And I mentioned it before, but it deserves mentioning again that this soundtrack is entirely composed on the Game Boy sound font. The variety of sounds Kaufman is able to extract from this is outrageous, from the accordion heard in the first bars of the Backwaters, to the electric guitars in several of the boss battles. And it's not just instruments. Listen to these percussive beats in the Coltrane Peak boss fight, the way they almost sound like bursts of steam from the train itself. So we have a huge collection of music, all of it tied together with harmonic patterns, recognizable melodic themes, a library of brilliantly concocted instruments, and a smart structure that links pieces from adjacent areas while preserving their identity. Okay, great. Now, let's throw it all out the window. Because what really makes this soundtrack special isn't structure, musical technique, or creative sound design. It's something much harder to quantify or specifically pinpoint. Mina the Hollower is oozing with charm and a refreshing sense of humor, of which the music is an essential part. Listening to tunes from the Backwaters Quartet in the town music hall, composing your own melody via Ghost Cat Choir, and even getting a waltz with a full-on choreography are some of the most fun and unique ways I've seen an RPG game incorporate music since Undertale. Then there are the Easter eggs. The mini-boss theme usually sounds like this. But the music for the major-minor battle is a little different. Get it? Minor to major. In the soundtrack you can download off Steam, there are some weird extra tracks. And then there are a couple of pieces in the game not even done by Kaufman. The compositions for the Astral Orrery and Spiral Summit were actually handled by Yuzo Koshiro, composer of games for the Sega Genesis, including the 8-bit version of Sonic the Hedgehog for the Game Gear. And Kaufman even adopts themes from both of Koshiro's tracks into some of the coolest sounding boss battle themes in the game. There's something beautiful there, the master helping the student, and the student building on the master's work to create something special and unique. The music of Mina the Hollower is nothing short of masterful. It perfectly fits the game's style of quirky and macabre, it's entertaining as hell to listen to, and feels cohesive and memorable despite its size. Though more than any of that, it's endearing and full of love, both for chiptune and for music in general. Seriously, Kaufman is a character, and it's so clear how much passion and love he has for video game music. Do yourself a favor and go watch some of his live stream appearances. From the masters of classical music to the masters of chiptune and beyond, Mina the Hollower soundtrack is truly one for the ages.